Hey, ladies, and welcome back to the Rooted Mama podcast. So, this week we're taking a break from the interviews. I felt like they are pretty intense and they're pretty long. So, I just wanted to do an episode that was going to be a little bit shorter and just kind of focused on something that has been continuously coming up as of late, whether it be in conversations or even like in my own life. So, for example, today I woke up and I was like super dizzy and I don't know why. Like, I was trying to put my finger on it and it just like slipped past me. Like, I still don't know why I was feeling so dizzy. I'm feeling better now, but I was going through the list of things that I did the day before, talking to my husband, to my mom, like just trying to put the pieces together. And we came up with like a tentative possible reason, but I just kept saying everything is connected. Everything is connected. And this is so true when it comes to motherhood. And I feel like women in this world are disconnected from that. We're getting further and further away from the reality that everything is so connected and we're living our lives as if things happen by chance. So I'm going to title this episode, It's Not a Fluke. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Rooted Mama, the podcast where motherhood meets wisdom, support, and empowerment. I'm Destynie, a mother on a mission to help women embrace a healed and fulfilling version of motherhood. Whether you're planning for your first baby, navigating pregnancy, or already deep in the parenting journey, each episode features real conversations with women in every stage of motherhood, insights from experts, and practical tips to help you feel grounded and confident. So as I said at the top of this episode, today we're talking about something I hear from mothers all the time. And that's the belief that so many of their struggles are random or unavoidable. Often there is a deeper connection that is not talked about enough. And I really wanted to break down some of the heavy hitting myths and misunderstandings. So we're going to go one at a time. And I want to start with the domino effect of birth interventions, because I think this is a big one. I know so many people kind of operate out of this idea that the hospital is the best place to go. And the goal of this episode is more to talk about the awareness of what's going on. And it doesn't always have to do with hospitals. Like, this could happen in a birth center with a midwife. It has more to do with how you give birth and how we need to be more connected to what is a natural birth process. I think most people don't know what that is. And because of that, there often is a chain of events that should happen, but then it's kind of like taken over or sidelined by the chain of events that are unnecessary interventions often. And so many mothers will have a birth experience that maybe wasn't ideal. Maybe it was traumatic to them. And they essentially operate as if it was just bad luck, right? But often it has less to do with luck and more to do with these chain of events that I talked about. So let's do an example. It's better if I do an example. So we like to induce in America. Like, the hospitals love to induce because they believe that due dates are like hard and fast, even though they say, like, in the beginning, when you go for your first checkup, like, due date is a guess date. Like, they make it sound all nice. When you get to the end of that pregnancy and you're at like 40 weeks, they will start to stress out. Matter of fact, by the time you get to like 38 weeks, they will start to think about planning an induction, like talk about how you can't go past 41 weeks and all of these things. And I could get into why they don't like to do that, but that's something for a different podcast. Let's focus on the chain of events. So we get to 40 weeks, maybe you're 41, and now your doctor is saying, let's induce because your baby's not here yet. Okay. You as a first-time mom are probably excited. Maybe you're excited as a second-time mom. I mean, I don't know. I don't know you, but most of the time, a mother at the end is like sick of being pregnant. And so she's just kind of like, yeah, let's whatever we need to do to get this baby out. And often we don't know kind of like the implications of an induction. So, like kickstarting your labor before your body is ready. And I think that's important to like emphasize that you are pushing your body into labor before it naturally happens. So think about any other circumstance where you like force an issue when it's not ready yet, right? Like think about cooking. If you are baking a cake or something and you take that cake out before it's ready, well, you can't really eat it, right? Because it's not ready yet. It has not been cooked fully. The same thing can be applied to your body. Like maybe your body didn't go into labor naturally because it wasn't ready, right? So we start off with the body that's not ready, and then we start with the induction instruments, let's say. And so one of the big ones is Pitocin. But before that, they may do something called like a membrane sweep. And that basically means that they're going to like stick their fingers in your vagina and then try to sweep around like the entrance to your cervix, like to try and kickstart the cervix dilating. And sometimes they'll take like a little balloon. I forgot what it's called. You can look it up. But they take like this little structure that's like a balloon and they stick it in the cervix and they start to like pump it full of something, maybe water. I'm not sure what they put in there, but they start to pump it full of something. Maybe it's just air. And it's supposed to force your cervix open to again start labor. Now, if those things don't work, there's another medication that they can use, but eventually they definitely will get to Pitocin. Now, you've probably heard this before, or maybe you haven't, but Pitocin is an artificial man-made form of oxytocin. And oxytocin is a natural hormone that your body produces, and it helps to, it doesn't, to be honest, I was going to say like it helps to like do contractions, like make your contractions start, but it does so much more than that. Like please take the time to look into oxytocin and all of the things. It's called the love hormone and it involves so many things, but Pitocin doesn't involve all of the things that oxytocin does. So it largely just makes your uterus contract and it produces longer, stronger, more painful contractions than what your body would naturally produce. Okay. So think about that for a second. You're going in, you're forcing your body into a state that it's not ready to be in. And then you're giving it a medication that is unnatural. Okay. Now, this is something that women talk about all the time too, which is maybe they went in wanting an unmedicated birth. They like the idea of it. They are afraid of needles. They don't want an epidural, whatever the case may be. Maybe they wanted an unmedicated birth. But then they go in with an induction, which already takes away the unmedicated part of birth because you're medicating the start to birth, right? You're medicating the start to labor. But then they still like try to go without an epidural because in their mind that's still natural birth, right? But it's not, right? I told you that the contractions of Pitocin are way stronger. And so the mother will inevitably choose to have an epidural, and rightfully so, because most of the time those Pitocin induced contractions are so much worse than what your body would naturally do. And so you have that woman has the epidural, and sometimes the epidural can slow labor. And actually, if you listen to some of my past episodes, some of the women said that like they had an epidural and it slowed their labor down. So maybe that will look like you're having failure to progress. That's what they would say. Like your labor is slowing down, and then they may give you more Pitocin, or maybe if they don't give you Pitocin, maybe they'll say that you just failed to progress and then recommend a C-section. So then that woman who went in as like oh yeah, maybe I'll try like an unmedicated birth, like maybe I want natural birth. Now she ends up with a C-section. And to her, because people just say like, oh, like you can't control birth, it's out of your hands, like you can't plan, you plan, God laughs, like all of these sayings. And like in actuality, if she didn't go in for that artificial induction, she probably would have went into labor naturally. her body would have done what it needed to do with oxytocin instead of pitocin. And maybe she would have had a typical like vaginal birth. Maybe she still would have had the epidural, but maybe she would have just had like a typical vaginal birth and didn't have to have that major surgery to birth her child. Does that make sense? Because like I said, I don't want to like come out of the gate just like bashing hospitals and what they do, but I just want women to fully understand kind of how things are related, right? When it comes to birth and it comes to these interventions and these ideas that the doctors come up with and tell you, and it sounds good because you just want to meet your baby. Sometimes it does more harm than good, especially if you don't know what you're getting into. So if you're aware of what Pitocin does and you're aware of like how due dates aren't really due dates, maybe you can work with your doctor. You don't have to run from the hospital. You don't have to run from a doctor, but maybe you could work with your doctor and say, hey, listen, I really, really, really don't want to be induced. I've done my research. I know kind of like how the cascade works. Can we talk about going even a couple extra days? Can we talk about other ways that I might be able to naturally induce? Or maybe you could just flat out say, I will not go into this hospital unless I'm just like naturally in labor, right? Like these people work for you. I think that's another really important point. Whoever you hire, like they are a provider. They are providing you with a service. Okay. Like they're not your daddy. They're not your mommy. They're not in control of you. They work for you. Okay. And when it comes down to your birth, you have all the control, even though it doesn't seem like that. The more knowledge that you have, the more you realize just how in control you are. If you don't want to go in for an induction because you're not ready yet, maybe you're 40 weeks in one day, just don't show up to the appointment. Don't show up to the doctor. Like you have that ability to slow things down. No one's going to put you in jail. No one's going to come and like beat you because you didn't come into the hospital and they say you had to come in. So that is a really important point. And I'm going to move on to the next one because I could talk about this one all day. And this one is related. It's about breastfeeding. So this is a big one where it's very similar to going into the hospital and saying like, maybe I want a natural birth. Like, yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to see how far I can get before I get an epidural. Like just kind of like haphazardly walking into the birth. The same thing is true for breastfeeding. Women often will just kind of say, I'm going to see how long I can go. I'm going to give it a try. And that in and of itself is likely setting you up for failure. Like, I don't want to call it failure, but it's setting you up for either a really difficult start to breastfeeding or a totally ended breastfeeding journey before it needed to end. And that's because breastfeeding is not hard, but hard at the same time, right? Like in the beginning, there's a lot that is involved with breastfeeding. And if you know nothing, because I'm speaking from personal experience here, like I went in thinking like, yeah, you just put the boob in the baby's mouth and they drink and like that's about it. And there's a lot more to it than that. Many of the mothers talked about, I think all of them talked about their breastfeeding struggles. And I think it's because we all stumbled, like just said, surely breastfeeding is simple. Like I have boobs and there's milk in them. Like that's it. And it's not. Okay. So I hope that makes sense, right? Like, so it's not as simple as that. I don't want to spend the time on everything because we do have a breastfeeding specialist coming on the show in a couple of weeks and we'll talk way more about breastfeeding, but that just was something that I wanted to bring up, but I wanted to focus more on how it relates to birth. So a big concern that women have is low milk supply. And the breastfeeding specialist and I will talk about this in detail, but it's worth talking about here because it's like the main reason that women quit breastfeeding really early. Like they will say they didn't have enough milk, the baby was hungry. I think some of this has to do with like the frantic weighing of babies like in the hospital and then their first couple of weeks, like when they go to the pediatrician, but they'll often say, I didn't make enough milk. I wasn't producing enough milk. And this often is related to the type of birth that you have. A lot of women don't know this. It took me a long time to figure this out as well. But when it comes to low milk supply, like true low milk supply, sometimes having a C-section can cause a slower start to milk coming in. There's a couple of reasons for that. A big one is that it's so important for you to have skin to skin with your baby, like immediately. So when you give birth to the baby should be placed on your chest, or you should take your baby and put that baby on your chest yourself. And no one should interfere with that. That baby should stay on your chest as long as possible, indefinitely, honestly. Like newborns need to be with their mothers, like indefinitely, like just on their bodies for so many reasons. And often with a C-section, that is obviously interrupted. So, like that natural chain of events that kickstarts your hormones and saying, like, hey, make milk for the baby, and same for the baby, like, hey, find your mother's milk, that is interrupted through a C-section, and often overlooked. And going along with that, because C-section is kind of like the epitome of like interventions in the hospital, you have a lot of medications flowing through you when you have a C-section. But even before that, if you just have an epidural, these medications have narcotics in them. Like they have things that, like, for you to experience birth, like mothers, if you have experienced natural labor pains or even like Pitocin labor pains, right? You know how it feels. Now think about how when they give you that medicine, like they give you that needle in your spine, and then you feel nothing. You are paralyzed. Can you imagine the strength of the medication that you're receiving to go from that intense level of discomfort and pain to nothing? Okay. Like we have to acknowledge that these medications are flowing through your body. And if you were afraid of eating sushi, or drinking alcohol or doing whatever stuff that they told you not to do because you were afraid of it going to your baby, that medication is going to your baby. Like I'm not trying to guilt, like listen, it's not about that. This is about connections, right? Like making connections. So these medications can interfere with milk supply, but it can also interfere with your baby's alertness, if that makes sense. So, like, your baby may be drowsy, disconnected, a little, medicated. And so they may not be wanting to latch right away. So, like, it interferes with your breastfeeding relationship, like the initiation. And I think that the medical world doesn't give it enough credit. Like they don't pay enough attention to how important the very first moments of a child's life are in establishing a bond with their mother. Okay. And again, we're not guilting anybody here. We are giving information so that you understand how these things are connected. So when it comes to milk supply, it's supply and demand, right? So if your baby is lethargic or just not interested in breastfeeding or latching on right away, there's no demand for the supply, right? And that, and then in addition to the fact that just some of those medications can interfere with your milk supply to start with, right? So when it comes to mothers saying, oh, I didn't make enough milk, and yeah, it just didn't work out for me, maybe there was nothing wrong with you, right? Like, I want to take that burden off of you if you're carrying it. Like take that shame away, that guilt, that feeling of inadequacy. There may have been nothing wrong with your body. You could have sabotaged it, right? So maybe take some ownership there, like understanding the responsibility that you played in going into this system, but also acknowledging that you only know what you know. I believe that if more mothers were informed, like adequately informed about how these things are related, they would make different choices, right? I don't think anyone knows that epidurals or C-sections can interfere to this extent with milk supply, right? If someone explained that and a mother was like, no, I definitely want to breastfeed. Like that was super important to that mother. She would make an informed choice to avoid those things, knowing the risk, similar to how she avoids deli meat, sushi, and all the other things in pregnancy. She would do the same thing if she was adequately informed. Okay, so we're moving on. I hope y'all are hanging in there with me. The next really big one is like fussy babies. Okay, like when people say, is he a good baby or is she good? She's such a good baby. Like whenever babies are not good babies, like maybe they don't sleep through the night, maybe they cry a lot, maybe they are a little bit more sensitive, people get a little funny, right? Like it's a little sketch. And I know from personal experience because my daughter, my firstborn, was labeled as a colicky baby. And if you're a first time mom or a mom who just never heard of this before, colic is basically like this weird blanket term for any baby that cries for like, I don't know, 3 hours a day for 3 weeks. It's like the rule of threes. At least that's what it was when like 5 years ago when my daughter was a baby. But basically, it's like a baby who is like unsettled, fussy, cries all the time, like just seems generally disgusted by being alive, if I'm honest. And these babies are often a result of their environment. And people just kind of like treat it as the lottery, but like the opposite, right? Like the opposite of the lottery, which is like you just rang the, you threw the dice and you got a colicky baby, or like you got a difficult baby, like just by chance. We often overlook some of the things that can encourage a baby to be fussy. I mean, we're not going to talk about the V word here because I know everyone has their own opinions and like we're not going there. But what I will say is, have you ever gotten a flu shot? Like as an adult, have you ever gotten like a shot that you needed to get? Maybe you were traveling overseas and like, do you remember how it felt? Like your arm was swollen. Maybe you got the sniffles. Maybe you got like a low grade fever. You were cranky. Like, remember that? I know you remember that. Like somebody in adulthood or even like late teens, you know what it feels like after you've gotten some sort of shot, right? Well, your baby, if you're in the hospital, and even with midwives, they're getting multiple shots day one of life. And then 24 to 48 hours after that, they're getting more shots. Okay. And in like both legs, they're taking blood out of their feet. Like some babies do just fine. In fact, most babies somehow are doing just fine. But some babies are more sensitive to that than others. And then there's other things that have to do with that. Like I said, we're not going to go there, but some babies are way more sensitive to all of those jabs than other babies are. Like, are we to expect them to just be like totally fine, ignore the headache, ignore whatever they have going on that they can't communicate to us because they were just born and they have no language? Their only language is to cry. Like, are we just supposed to act like every baby is supposed to be totally fine after all of those things happen to them? And then going along with that, if they had a difficult birth, like your baby is going through that birth with you. And I can say for certain that they are, because when I was birthing my son at home, there was no one around. It was just me. And I would have contractions. And then when I wasn't having a contraction, it was still like hurt. And I realized my son was moving. Like he was working with my body, with the contractions. Like when they were done, he would move, like he would squeeze his way out. Like I could feel him. And it was pretty painful and kind of a weird sensation, but like he was going through that birth with me, right? And when you have a difficult birth experience, your baby has a difficult birth experience too. So just let that sink in. Like if you were having a vaginal birth and you were pushing for 4 hours, your baby was being pushed for 4 hours. Like think about that. Their head was being squeezed against your pelvis or through your vaginal canal. And then like if a doctor used forceps or a vacuum or whatever, like they experienced all those things and they don't have words to explain what happened to them. And again, we are not guilting mothers in this podcast. This is not what this is about. I just want you to really think about the connections. We need to come away from this idea that things happen by chance, that you get that babies are fussy by chance, that you had trouble breastfeeding by chance. Like, we really need to come away from that and start to connect dots here, right? Once you start to connect dots, you actually start to gain more control over your life and gain more control over your story, right? So like, let's say you had a baby that came home fussy and you're just like, what did I do? Like, is it me? Like, is there something wrong? Or like, what's wrong with my baby? Why is she so unhappy? Like, why is he so unhappy? Maybe if you knew, you know what? That C-section that I had, he wasn't able to go through the birth canal. And when they go through the birth canal, they get exposed to beneficial bacteria that help their gut. And this baby is probably really gassy, or maybe he's not digesting the milk appropriately because maybe he doesn't have all of those beneficial bacteria. And so maybe I need to find a really good probiotic for this baby, right? Like, or maybe that baby was in a weird position when they were born. Maybe they used forceps on that baby to come out. Maybe the baby has torticollis, like a neck issue, or is misaligned. I should take my baby to a chiropractor to get an adjustment to make them more comfortable, right? So I hope that makes sense. Like, it's not about blaming like what happened. It's more about understanding how it's related. And you actually get more power there because now you have something to do. Like, you have a way forward. Like, okay, my baby is struggling with this. I know that this is what happened, da 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 da. This is what I need to do next. Let me have, like, you have a real way to make your baby comfortable, right? Okay. Whew, let's take a breath. We have one more to go. All right, so this is a big one. This is one that is super important, so important that I made a quiz about it and I wrote a book about it. Okay. And this is the myth of falling into postpartum depression or baby blues, right? This is a big one, y'all. Like, I had this happen, so I can speak again from personal experience that I thought that I could dodge postpartum depression and I could dodge all the other issues with postpartum just because I had gone to therapy like a couple of times in my life and I believed in Jesus. Like, I just thought that, it's not going to happen to me because like I know how to help myself. Like, I have some strategies, some grounding techniques for my anxiety. Like, I'll be all right. And I did not lend enough credit to how so many things in my life brought me exactly to the moment where I was horribly depressed in postpartum, but not only horribly depressed, I had a full blown autoimmune disorder. Okay. And I know for a fact that my autoimmune disorder was 100% linked to my emotional well being or lack thereof. So let's break it down. Okay. If you were someone, and I talk about this in my Instagram reels and posts and all that stuff. So like, maybe you've heard it before, but I really think it's important. Like, if you are someone who had some sort of childhood issues, like some sort of childhood traumas, maybe you had parents that had addictions, or like they fought all the time, or they ignored you. Maybe you had a difficult relationship with another family member or your sibling. All of those things will contribute to how you navigate your life as an adult. Okay. Moving on from childhood, if you had a difficult relationship, like maybe it was abusive, maybe you had something really like actually traumatic, maybe you had a car accident, like all of those things, any sort of trauma or like life altering event that caused you to have some difficulties with your mental health, like maybe you had anxiety, maybe you had PTSD, maybe you've dealt with depression. And even if you didn't have any traumas, but you've always sort of been like a people pleaser, or you guys get where I'm going, right? So like, whatever your baseline status was before you got pregnant will go into the pregnancy, into the birth, and postpartum. And this is especially true if you don't or didn't do the work to really highlight and focus on those things before you got pregnant and before you had your baby. And that's because each event that happens to you in your life contributes to who you are as a person. They stick with you. So, whatever the traumas are, the relationships, they don't go away. They seal onto your body, onto your soul, into your soul, latch onto your spirit, and they do not go away. They may be hidden, they may be exiled, they may be every time they try to show up, maybe you douse it with drugs, alcohol, busyness, work, relationships, but they don't go away. Okay. Heavy emphasis. They do not go away. And so then when you go into your pregnancy and birth, postpartum, those things start to get exposed. And it's often because you become very vulnerable in pregnancy and birth. It's the most vulnerable time in a woman's life to be pregnant and to give birth. And they start to expose things. Those circumstances start to expose parts of yourself that either you didn't address, you were running from, whatever. Okay. So that's before. And then when it comes to your actual birth, if you have any of the difficult things that I talked about, whether it be from the cascade of interventions or like a literal fluke, like you had a hemorrhage, like you were bleeding out, like just because like something traumatic happened, that birth trauma is huge. Like it is massive. And that's because you're the most vulnerable when you give birth. And I want to give an example here so it makes more sense. People really despise like child predators, right? Like I think we can all agree anyone who is doing anything bad to babies or children is the worst scumbag of them all, deserves to go to HE double hockey sticks, right? And that's because children are innocent and vulnerable. They cannot protect themselves. And for someone to be a predator and like attack them or harm them when they know they can't protect themselves, it's the worst, right? And we know how important it is to protect the innocence of a child, to protect a vulnerable person, right? And that's because whatever happens to that kid, like, yeah, kids are resilient, but like they're ruined, right? Like their innocence is taken away forever. Like they can never go back. And we all cherish that. We all know what it felt like to like not know that Santa was real, or like find out that Santa was real, or like whatever. Like we all know what it feels like to kind of like have the innocence taken from us, or to have something like really bad happen when we couldn't protect ourselves. So when it comes to birth, like that's what's going on. When you have something really bad happen to you in your birth, it's seared on your soul forever, just like that poor innocent child when they, had whatever bad thing happen to them. It's the same. So I hope that makes more sense, like why it's such a big deal. And the problem is that because we don't acknowledge how things are connected, and often we just say healthy baby is all that matters, mothers will really gaslight themselves, or like mothers will say that it wasn't a big deal because all that matters is a healthy baby. Meanwhile, they are still having that really traumatic experience seared onto their soul, like branded, okay? Like doesn't go away. It doesn't matter how healthy you and the baby are after that experience, like it's still there, right? So we talked about how you come into it. Maybe you have things going on already. Then maybe you have a birth that was less than desirable, or like flat out traumatic. And now you enter postpartum, right? And here's where things get even more tricky, because you're coming in with all of these things, and now you have to like take care of a baby, and like you didn't do a lot of preparation, like you don't know how to take care of a baby. You're trying to like deal with the hormones of like, the dropping of hormones and those like natural emotional swings. And your partner probably is a first time parent too, and doesn't really know how to help you. and maybe you're trying to heal from a surprise C-section, and all of those things just like compound, 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 and they lead you to a really dark place, right? Sometimes for mothers, it's anxiety that gets them. Like they're really worried about their baby dying. Like they're really worried about making sure they're breathing 24/7, or really worried about making sure they're getting all the food that, if they're breastfeeding, like making sure that they are fed. And it's a lot. Like that's anxiety. But then also for some mothers, it just goes straight to deep, like horrible sadness. And a big, huge factor too is that mothers are often alone too much. Maybe the village isn't there, or if the village is there, they're coming to like hold the baby and not hold the mother, not care for the mother, not ask her how she's doing, not letting her talk through her experience. Because maybe as soon as she says, yeah, that was really hard for me, like, I wasn't expecting that C-section, the person like automatically says, well, at least you guys are okay. Like all that matters is a healthy baby. And then she's like, yes, all that matters is a healthy baby. And meanwhile, she's like screaming inside because she wants to talk about what happened to her. Like, what the heck was that? What happened to me? Right? Oh gosh, it's all coming back to me. I mean, I didn't have a C-section, but like all of these things are both distant from my life because it was 5 years ago, but so fresh because these things happened to me and it's seared. And I talk to other mothers and I know like they see it like it was yesterday. Like you only get so many births in your life and so many chances to be pregnant, so many chances to have a baby and like be a mother again. And it's such a sacred time that is being so manipulated and dirtied. And we don't acknowledge how it's related, right? So you don't just stumble into postpartum mental health issues. Like that's all I'm saying. Like if you got nothing from that whole rant, it's that so many things are connected. And if you know that, like if you know what, I'm a people pleaser. Like I got to work on this because I need to be able to set boundaries when this baby comes. Or you know what, I have anxiety and I'm sick of this. Like I need to work on grounding techniques. I need to work on eating better. Like there may be something in my diet that's causing me to feel anxious. Maybe I need to stop drinking coffee because coffee is linked to anxiety. Like you start to have more control when you acknowledge that, or not even acknowledge, when you can find connections, when you can find out how things are related, you can work to change them. But if you act like it's a fluke, like it happened by accident or by chance, then you lose all control. Like if everything was the lottery when it came to pregnancy, birth, and motherhood, it would be such a crazy place. And in fact, it is, right? Like the postpartum depression rates in mothers is like sky high. And it's because people are treating all of these things like it's the lottery, when if you know better, you'll do better. There's mothers who know now, like from their second birth or third, like if you listen to my friend Frankie's episode, the first episode of this series of interviews, she talked about how she changed things the second time around. And there are mothers who know from experience and change at the outset of their second or, subsequent births and their subsequent postpartums. Like they changed, like I did. I had not an ounce of postpartum anything with my son. And it's all because I recognized the signs. I knew what I needed to do. I needed to have the birth that I wanted. I needed to have lots of support in postpartum. I needed to take it easy. I needed to have breastfeeding relationship with my son be the most important thing. And I did all of those things and I felt fantastic after his birth. I felt amazing in the year postpartum. Like I still do. I mean, he's a year and a half now and I have not felt anything bad this whole time. It's been great. It's been so great that for the first like couple of weeks, my husband and I felt like we had taken like ecstasy or something. Like we were just riding on just like such a high after our birth. And this is why I go so hard for mothers, like for first time moms, because it shouldn't just be like a second time mom thing. Like it shouldn't be after you experience the first horrible situation that you can fix it for the second one. Like let's try to avoid it if all possible by knowing what, knowing how to protect yourself from these things. These things aren't flukes. That's the end of the message, right? Like these things aren't flukes. You don't just stumble into them. It's not a lottery. We can do something about it. I want to talk about what we can do, but I pretty much do that throughout my entire Instagram, and in other episodes, we talk about it as well. So let's close the episode there. And I do have a book coming out, which is all about having a healed version of motherhood. And it's geared towards first time moms, but I do a lot of talking about kind of a redemption for mothers who already are mothers too. And it stems from my story, how I healed myself from postpartum depression and the autoimmune disorder, and how I created 5 mindsets that will help you have a more thriving version of motherhood. And it's coming out in a couple of weeks. I'm doing some last tweaks and I want to make sure it's very good and actually helpful. So just be on the lookout for that. I'll probably be posting about it in my Instagram. Also have a postpartum quiz that I created. It's supposed to be like kind of fun, but definitely informative. And it basically breaks down the different types of mother like personalities in postpartum. So maybe you are a mother who needs more of a village. Maybe you're a mom who's disconnected from her body. And I give you actual tips. So like once you take the quiz and find out kind of what your archetype is, I give you actual practical tips on how to move forward from that. Because again, you're not stumbling into this. These things are connected, which means there is a solution out there. Okay. I hope you all have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into The Rooted Mama. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired, supported, and a little more rooted in your own motherhood journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mama or mama-to-be. Remember, motherhood is a journey best shared, so let's keep growing together. Until next time, stay strong, stay supported, and stay deeply rooted.